Traveling the world with a baby can sound daunting, right? Maybe even crazy.
Now imagine trying to do that as you just started a YouTube channel, working full-time, and also trying to enjoy what each country has to offer.
We traveled the world with our 8-month-old baby, and at each destination we had a different nanny. How did we find these nannies? How did it work out, and did we make mistakes? I can tell you we did. In this week's video we're gonna tell you all about it so you don't have to make the same mistakes as we did.
Make sure you watch till the end, because at the end of the video we're going to reveal how much we paid for each nanny per country.
All right, let's dig in. Hi everyone, welcome to another video on our channel Nations Without Borders. My name is Josine.
And I'm Eric, and together with our daughter Nora, we are the Nation family.
As you might know, in 2024 we did a 5-month trip to 4 different countries with a baby that couldn't even walk yet.
And this wasn't a vacation or anything for us. We were living kind of our old lifestyle, but as a family, digital nomads, so we were working the whole time. I was working full-time, Josine was working part-time.
And today we're sharing exactly how we found these nannies, what worked, what didn't work, and the lessons we learned.
Yeah, so if you're a parent and you've been thinking about traveling the world while working remotely or whatever the case might be, this video is for you.
All right, let's talk about the differences between a traveling nanny and a local nanny first. So when we started planning this trip, we had the options. We had 2 options. Bring our nanny that we had here in Portugal with us the entire trip, or hire a nanny at each destination.
Yeah, that would have been nice to bring the nanny that we used her, because Nora had already developed a relationship with her. She was awesome, that we trust her. You build up that trust over time. But then if you go that route, then it's obviously more expensive. And then you're having that person with you the entire trip in your home, etc., etc. Now, keep in mind, in each country, we were there for 4 weeks, and this is because we had about a 5-month time span of travel, and we had various friends in different countries that we wanted to meet. So 4 weeks per country is too short of a time for us with our preferences. We prefer to keep it a little bit more slow mad style, 2 to 3 months per location, so we can really soak it up, because we are working the entire time. So that gives us mainly the weekends to really do extracurricular activities. But in this trip, it was 4 weeks per country.
Yeah. Indeed. So not only the cost, it would also mean a lot more paperwork in terms of like visas and booking experiences. Logistics of the whole thing if you have an extra person with you traveling. It's just very different, and it adds on an extra layer of organization.
Just a different dynamic.
Plus, we really wanted Nora to have the experience of different nannies or different cultures. And even though she was very young and she might not even remember it, or like we're actively noticing the differences, we really think that it was good for her development to have that little detail in there of different nannies per country.
Yeah, because up until that point, Nora had 1 nanny for the entire time. So we thought it would be good to start socializing her more, getting her used to strangers, which in the end turned out to be great. So.
Yeah, that was a good choice.
Yeah, so in the end, we made the choice to find a babysitter or nanny in each country. And even though that provided its own layers of complexity and it was definitely challenging at times, we learned a lot along the way, and we learned that it was possible. If you're a parent who's been thinking about pulling the trigger on traveling remotely with your family, then listen up, because now we're going to discuss travel and planning. First, let's talk about how we prepared. Our itinerary was this. We did 4 weeks in a small surf town of Popoyo, Nicaragua, meeting our friends Jerry and Leo, who just opened up a co-working, co-living space called Waves and Wi-Fi. Place is epic, by the way. Definitely check it out, especially if you're into surfing. After that, we visited our friends Luke and Gabby with their daughter, who's around the same age as Nora. They live in the area of Surf City in El Salvador, and we had never been to that country, so we were super stoked to go there. And then after a month in El Salvador, we hopped over to Puerto Escondido, Mexico for 2 months. Because that's where we actually used to live. We lived there for about 2 years. That's where I proposed, and that's where we got married. So Puerto Escondido holds a special place in our hearts, so we stayed there a little bit longer. And then after that, we headed over to Phoenix, Arizona in the United States, which is my hometown, to visit my family so they could all meet our baby daughter, Nora.
So how do you prepare childcare in these places? Now, the US wasn't that hard, but I had to start with Nicaragua because that was our first destination. We've been there before, but Popoyo is a really small town. So my search started about 2 or 3 months before departure by asking our friends over there, like, hey, do you know any babysitters? Like, our friends don't have kids, so for sure they didn't know any, but they have friends that maybe have kids and have babysitters. So I asked Leo to help out with, like, can you put me in contact with other moms maybe? Turned out that there is a WhatsApp group with other moms in that area. And there is a little bit of Facebook groups. It's not really a group. It was just more messages here and there that I could find, like, okay, people are going there. But turns out that 2 or 3 months is really early. Like, a lot of people
don't know their schedules.
Yeah, it's a small town. People live by the day maybe. I don't know. But I was too early with planning this. So I had to wait a little bit. And eventually, 2 names were given to me, but like, hey, here's a phone number, WhatsApp them. They don't speak English, by the way, just do it in Spanish and take it from there. So that's where I started, with a phone number of someone.
It kind of does take a certain mentality, and we're fortunate that we already have like 8 years of practice traveling and working remotely. So kind of does take just like going, like knowing that you're gonna figure it out. Like even if you don't know the plan right up front, just know that eventually you'll figure it out and it will all work out as long as you put in the time and effort. So that's how, even though we tried to plan like 3 months ahead, we realized it was a little too soon, but we knew like, all right, as it gets closer, we'll reach out again and we will find someone. And so you kind of have to have that flexible and open mindset. And if this is your first time doing this with your family, I can understand that that might be a little bit hard and scary, but you just have to trust that everything will work out and you will find someone if it's an area where there's expats, because if you're going to somewhere super remote where there's not a lot of expats, then you really don't have any connections there, and you're solely just based off of like going what's available on internet websites, which if it's in a remote area where there's not a lot of expats, there's probably not a lot of online resources. So that's the benefit of going to somewhere popular. Like Popoyo, Nicaragua is not popular, but there's a big surf community there of expats. And they usually, in these types of communities, there will be WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups. And that's how you can network and reach out to people ahead of time to make these kind of arrangements.
So, who did I find in Nicaragua? I found Gloria. Gloria came via a friend of a friend. Like, that was one of the phone numbers that I received. And I reached out, and at first she didn't respond, or there was some, I don't know, she wasn't available at first. Later on it turned out that she was available again, and she texted back. Gloria is in her 40s, has kids of her own, is a babysitter for a friend of a friend, so she has the experience. And
a very traditional Latina mom where you see her and you know you can just trust her and that she knows what she's doing, and she's confident and direct and proactive and just handles things.
Yeah, and calm. Like with Nora on the first day, Nora was sharing her toys right away. Like, she wouldn't let her pick her up, but it was like sort of trustworthy person. Like, here's my toy.
And the thing I liked about Gloria also is that she wasn't trying to tell you how to parent.
No.
She wasn't like...
No, she was fully like...
She wasn't like a sassy Latina mom where you're doing it wrong, do this. She was more... She would let you tell her the way you preferred things done.
Yeah, but that also made it hard for me, and it was maybe also because it was the start of the trip. Like, I speak basic Spanish, but not all the baby-related words, so that was a steep learning curve for me too.
You weren't really drinking at that point, so your Spanish wasn't as fluent.
But like all the words were like diaper, creams, and all the things that come with babies. I had to learn all those words. So there was a whole lot of Google Translate there. But also, we just arrived at the beginning of our trip. I had to figure everything out as a new mom at this very remote location. Like, the supermarket was an hour drive away. It is not like, oh, I forgot to bring this, let's just go get it. No, that's a whole day ordeal almost. Being in a new country, and especially in a country like Nicaragua, like, what kind of food is available for my kid? What do I give her to drink, and what's all in there? Like, here in Portugal, I knew everything and I had it under control, but I felt like I had to learn it all over again.
Yeah, and that was one compromise. Speaking of baby food, that was one compromise we did have to make, because at the time Nora was on formula, and being in Europe, we had her on some high quality top shelf formula, Hip from the Netherlands, and then also Holly sometimes.
Yeah.
And those formulas you cannot find in Central America. And obviously you can only bring so much with you. on your suitcase. So I think we only brought 1 container. Now, if you're really hardcore about your baby's diet, maybe you bring a whole extra suitcase full of baby formula. That's up to you. But we just brought 1 extra container, and we knew that we could find Nestle Non-Pro, which is, we don't prefer to give her Nestle products, but it was decent, and we knew we could find that in the grocery stores over there. So that was one compromise we had to make.
Yeah, it was also something that Gloria helped us with, like cooking for her. Like Gloria asked me, like, what do you want me to give her? And of course I had food there, but how do you want me to prepare this and all the things? And she was super helpful, like making food, cleaning the house. She didn't have to do that. Like she was very proactive in that way, like making sure that everything was taken care of. So yeah, absolutely love Gloria. I learned a lot in those weeks, and she was definitely a pillar for me to lean on in those weeks to just get this trip started.
Yeah, because you were pretty overwhelmed that first week or two, more than you suspected. So that's just one thing to keep in mind is like those first weeks, especially if this is your first time doing this kind of travel, like working remotely and for extended periods of time, is that there will be a learning curve. There will be some stress in the beginning, but you'll get over it and you'll learn and you'll become better. But being open-minded and flexible is absolutely key to having that mentality to like survive those times. So yeah, just keep that in mind.
So yeah, the first 2 weeks in Nicaragua were rough, but I had to get my act together, because 2 weeks later we would depart to El Salvador, and I didn't have a nanny over there yet. So I had to like get back on my research.
Back to the drawing board.
Yeah. So for El Salvador, you actually found a website with au pairs, nannies, babysitters around the world that you could sign up for. It was a paid service. You sign up and then you can see any au pairs resume and all the experience that they have.
The website looked a little bit old school. Not as bad as Craigslist.com if you're from the US. A little bit better than that, but I was like, this website doesn't seem that great, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So we used that website, and I went in different Facebook groups for El Salvador, especially for El Zonte, El Tunco, Surf City basically, to find groups and post in there like, hey, we're coming from then to then. We're looking for a babysitter, nanny for X amount of hours per day. Let me know if you know anyone or if you are a babysitter yourself. I got a bunch of messages from that, but not all of those were useful. Some were like, oh yeah, no, I'm in San Salvador and my sister knows someone, and without any further information. But some were good enough for me to reach out to them and start a conversation with them. And we asked our friends Luke and Gabby over there, because they have a baby Nora's age, and I was wondering maybe they have a babysitter. Luna. Maybe they have a babysitter that they trust and has extra time for an extra baby, or maybe, just asking around. So we had their network, we had Facebook groups, and we had that one website that I signed up for. Eventually, we found someone on that website that had a good resume. She had worked in Panama before, we had a good conversation, and on the second or the third day in El Salvador, she came over to the house for like a trial. Let's see how it goes. Because we also had a person recommended to us through our friends, but I wanted to talk to this person first that we were already talking to through that website. So this girl comes over. We did 2 or 3 days at our Airbnb, and she was just there for a couple of hours for us to get to know her, but also for Nora to connect with her. And in those days, I just couldn't see the match, or it felt off. There was something.
Nora just was not taking to her.
Yeah.
Nora was not trusting her. They just weren't vibing or clicking, which is normal the first day, but after the second or third day, you should be able to get the hang of it. So it was unfortunate, but it is what it is. So also keep that in mind. Usually those first few days is like a trial period. Are you clicking with that person? Are you connecting? And are you getting that trust?
So yeah, after 3 days, it kind of stressed me out, because those 3 days I was also at home. I did not leave her alone with Nora yet, because it wasn't working that well. So that also meant that I couldn't work in those days. So I had to postpone my work to later in the week, and that was stressful too. Like, I need to get my work done, and now I need to decide if I want to keep this babysitter for the month or not. And eventually I went with my gut, and I just told her, this is not going to work out. I need to find someone else.
Luckily, we had a plan B.
Yeah, so that's where the babysitter through our friends came in. They recommended her after we already spoke with this first babysitter. So that's when I reached out to Sandy that's her name, Sandra. And Sandra is actually a babysitter of a friend. And that job was paused for the whole month because that family that she was babysitting were going to travel.
So we got really lucky.
Perfect timing there.
So that goes back to what I mentioned earlier about mentality, being flexible and going with the flow. You just have to kind of trust that things are going to work out and you'll figure it out. So we got very lucky that she was available during that time window that we needed her for.
Yeah, and Sandy also didn't speak English. It was all Spanish. But on her first day, her husband, who also rented out his car to us,
Gory.
there was a full coincidence.
Shout out to Gory.
We didn't know this, but she was apparently the wife of a person that we already knew there. But her husband spoke English, so on her first day, he dropped her off, but he was waiting outside. And eventually, she went to get him to translate for us.
She was great.
Yeah, she was the best.
She also, I think this kind of goes into when you take care of a baby, it's like Sandra came in there, she took charge, she was confident, and it was very obvious with Nora how Nora reacted to her that she liked that. Like Nora kind of reacts to the confidence of the other person. If someone picks her up and they seem confident and they're friendly and approachable, then Nora is much more kinder to that person.
Yeah, that went really well. And in the end, saying goodbye to Sandy was really hard. I think we were all crying.
Yeah, each month it was hard. So also something to watch out for is you get your baby or your children will get attached to the nanny, and then also you do. So it's really hard to say goodbye every month.
It's a bit of an emotional roller coaster that you experience every month.
You might be wondering, we should pause here for a second, and before we go on to Mexico, it's like, you might be wondering and thinking to yourself, like, sounds like this is a nightmare and stressful. Why don't you guys just watch your baby yourself? And the answer to that is it's different for everyone. We follow a variety of different traveling families, and a lot of the times it does seem like the mother or one of the parents is like the primary caretaker during the whole time. And for us, like, Josine wanted to keep working part-time. She wanted to have that me time, at least working, a few hours a day. And that's just because Josine's very independent and likes to work. So she wanted to maintain that. Also,
financially, it's also important.
Financial benefits as well. So that is the reason why we didn't choose to just watch her the entire time herself. It was important to us to have a babysitter at least a little bit part-time.
Yeah, when we are saying nanny, that's also important, by the way. We don't mean a nanny that lived in our Airbnb with us. This is maybe more of a babysitter for X amount of hours per day, and then she goes.
And they would usually come from 8 a.m. to like 2 p.m.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a part-time deal.
Yeah, and then the rest of the day I had her. That's where I was working part-time, so I was working in the morning, and the babysitter took over, and then in the afternoon I was back home.
So you can tweak this strategy or like the situation to however you want. Every person's different, every family's different, every baby's different. So if you're the type of mom who can hang out all day with your baby and that's your deal and you want to take care of it full time and you don't need to work, great, more power to you. You'll save money too. So that's amazing. But otherwise, just make it work for you. All right, so that was it for El Salvador. It turned out really well and we had a great experience, but that leads us to our next country we went to, Mexico. Puerto Escondido, Mexico, also a small surf town, but another situation where we found our babysitter through, I think, a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group.
No, this was Facebook. Puerto Escondido is just a bigger town with a lot of tourism going on.
A lot of expats.
There is a Facebook group for moms I think there were even 2 Facebook groups for moms in Puerto Escondido. There is like a children clothing swap group on Facebook. There were so many Facebook groups that I was part of. So I had more confidence in finding someone here. Also, we have a lot of friends there as we lived there for 2 years. So finding a nanny or a babysitter there wasn't hard. I posted in one of the groups that we were looking. Someone responded to me. She is Canadian and she said she used to run a school or has a school in Puerto Escondido. And she gave me 2 names with phone numbers of ladies that also do babysitting themselves. And I reached out to one of them, Vero, and it was a direct hit. It was great. Also, didn't speak any English, but she has a son herself, worked at the school, and also does a study in the evening. So
you got a good refresher on your Spanish for these months.
Ooh, I did. I think Nora's first words were also Spanish. Definitely, I'm pretty sure. No, Vera was great, but also in Mexico we stayed for 2 months. So we needed someone available for 2 months and not just a few hours for a couple of weeks. Vera was available. Vero had the experience, so she came over one day.
She was a pro.
She was a pro. She came in a shirt with even a logo on there with like
She had
kids or something.
An apron.
Yeah.
Like you could tell she worked in childcare.
Yeah, sometimes she brought toys with her. She was just so awesome.
So yeah, that's just another example of where we found someone through Facebook, WhatsApp. So it's just a matter of networking and.
Also, by this point, we are somewhere that we've been before, where we lived, so we know exactly what's where in Puerto Escondido. We didn't have to learn anything there. We didn't have to make any new friends or there was no, like in Nicaragua and El Salvador, I felt that overwhelm. In Puerto Escondido, there was no overwhelm because I knew exactly where I was. Also, I had already 2 months of traveling with a baby under my belt, including speaking Spanish to nannies. So the experience for me was super easy in Puerto Escondido. It was super relaxed.
All right, so after Mexico was the United States. Now, this was an interesting one and one I was curious about because I haven't lived in the US for about 8 years and I know what babysitters used to cost back in the day when I was a little kid. But I just assumed, I'm like, the babysitters in the US are gonna be so freaking expensive, I know it. And then of course, my prediction was right. I have a large network in Phoenix, Arizona. My friends are there, all my family.
Yeah.
My sister has kids, so obviously we utilized our direct network first, got references, and then you also joined a couple Facebook groups.
But we'll talk a little bit more about the cost later. Just the whole experience of finding a nanny was completely different for the US compared to Mexico, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. It was, I don't really know how to explain it, but for example, all these Facebook groups that I was in about like babysitters and nannies, all the nannies and babysitters offering their services came with like a long list of like,
credentials.
I know how to do CPR on babies. I have this and this diploma. I have a certificate for this. Like, how do I choose now? Like, oh my God, this is a long list of very qualified babysitters. Where do I start? So instead of the overwhelm of like, I don't know anyone and maybe there's one babysitter in town, I went to like 50 applicants that could possibly be good. So how do you choose them?
And it was also, just for some additional context, we were in Phoenix during the holidays, like during Christmas. So that was also a little bit more challenging because we had some time off for work. We were, again, only there 4 weeks, so.
Yeah, so this month in the US was a little bit different. We had like a week off ourselves between Christmas and New Year's. And it came down to, when we were still in Mexico, I did 4 different calls with different girls, all in their 20s that offered their services for within a certain range of cost.
Obviously, it's going to be more expensive than prices in Central America, but we're like, Jesus,
Fine.
$35 an hour.
But this was a lot. I could have also just, at a certain point, I was like, if we're hiring someone for $35 an hour, I could also just not work for a whole month.
Like this month, you just don't work.
Yeah, that simple. It was really that simple. So, no, I had calls with these girls, and they're actually all very, very qualified and great girls to talk to. And I just went with my gut, and Clarissa was the one that I chose. She had experience already with other families. She had the references as well. She had all the certificates that I wanted, and we had just a great call. So she came over to the house. Nora liked her too, and the first week went really well. And then Nora got sick, or I got sick. I don't remember. Some of us, maybe we were both sick.
One of you got sick, and then the week after that, Clarissa, she got sick. There was, like the holidays, there was like a flu or a cold floating around, so it was making its rounds through everyone.
And then you had the week of Christmas and New Year's that we were both taking off, so we didn't need anyone. And then in the last week, we also had family. Your sister wanted to babysit.
Yeah, my sister kept coming over to babysit, and my mom. So it was a very inconsistent month.
Yeah, so in the end, we didn't have Clarissa for that many hours.
Just know that in the U.S., it is very easy to find a babysitter. Like, obviously, you're going to pay more money over there.
I also have to say that in the US there was a little bit more fear-mongering in a way, with like, you have to be sure who you hire for the job and taking care of your child. You cannot trust anyone. Where in Central America it was more like, no, everyone is fine, everyone is a mom, everyone has kids here, you can trust anyone, it's fine. Where there was also a cultural difference that I sensed with like, yeah, you need to hire the right person here. You need to hire the right person everywhere. It doesn't matter where you are. There's risks involved anywhere. It's not a country defining thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that has to do with all the certificates and references and experience that someone needs to have. So, all right, Nora woke up from her nap, so Eric is taking care of her and getting her ready for the rest of the day while I finish this video. We spoke about our destinations, how we found nannies there. Let's talk about the things I learned, mistakes that were made, and the cost per nanny per destination. So lessons I've learned. Stress management and overwhelm would probably be my first thing to inform you about. The first 2 weeks of your trip are going to be hard. Depending a little bit on where you are and how much help you have, but the adjustment of like, oh, we're traveling now, what is where and who is this nanny and how do I deal with this? That can be hard, can be a lot. So make sure you prepare for that and that in the first week or so you don't have like big plans or major events happening. So try to adjust your schedule to that. Second is the language. Learned a couple of baby related words in Spanish. It would have helped me a lot because the overwhelm in those first 2 weeks were plenty enough to deal with, and the language barrier on top of that didn't help. Sure, there's Google Translate, but just knowing the basic things in the language that you're going to, or the country that you're going to in that language, is just important. That also brings me to the third point, and that is your own mentality and your attitude towards it. Try to not stress about it. Be flexible. Stay in the groove a little, and like, things happen, things go wrong, and that's fine. But in the end, everything will work out. To the third thing as well, but like, try to trust the process. Everything will work out. In the end, there are other moms in your neighborhood. There's always someone that's willing to help. Most people are friendly. So even if something doesn't work out, it will in the end. Have that attitude, be flexible, and you're gonna be fine. Another lesson I learned, that if you're choosing to hire a new nanny per destination, is that you are going to be busy finding this person at the previous destination. So when we were in Nicaragua, I was looking for someone in El Salvador. When we were in El Salvador, I was looking for someone in Mexico. It took a little bit more time than I anticipated. So make sure you have time to invest in this research and finding the right person. Another great lesson, or something that I would want to give to you, is make sure you do trial periods. I didn't really do that until after El Salvador, because in El Salvador we found someone that wasn't really the match, and I had such a hard time letting her go, telling after 3 days like, hey, this is not going to work out, I'm sorry. Where if I had communicated to her the first 3 days is just a trial area, or like a trial period, she could have expected it, and now it was just very hard for me to let her go. So from there on I communicated with like, 3 days is a trial and then we'll see. So hire and fire fast, I would say. That also brings me to the next point, and that is go with your mom gut. I think you hear this throughout your whole motherhood experience, but go with your intuition. It tells you things and it's most of the time right. Last lesson is, I think we hired the best people through word of mouth. Not through Facebook, not through WhatsApp, not through websites. I used all of them. But all people that I hired was through recommendation, besides the one in the US. The US was a whole vetting process on its own. But in El Salvador, in Nicaragua, in Mexico, all nannies were through someone that has hired them before. So even though I used Facebook to find these people, a recommendation coming from another mom is worth so much more than just a resume. Let's now talk about how much we paid per nanny per destination. Starting in Nicaragua, we had Gloria for $10 a day, US dollars a day. That was no matter if she stayed for 4 hours or did she stay the whole day, or if she worked the evening, it didn't matter. It was $10 a day, which is very affordable. In El Salvador, we paid $77.50 per hour, and she was with us for 5 days a week, I think from 8 to 2. Then in Mexico, for Vero, we paid $5 an hour. She was with us 4 days a week, also from 8 to 2, because I worked the mornings. And in the US, we paid $18 per hour, which is significantly higher, but $18 per hour is actually on the lower end for US babysitters. I would say anything in the $20 range is normal, and above 30 is higher end. We found someone perfectly qualified for the job for $18. Now, reflecting back, it might sound that it was super hard to get this done and find a nanny in every destination, but it wasn't that hard. And I'm very happy that we made this decision, because it created so much more time for us to keep working, to do experiences. And for example, when we had to go to the immigration office in Mexico, it was so nice that we had someone taking care of Nora. Nora could have joined us to the office, but it was so much easier without her there. We had someone to rely on in every country, but also in every country we were exposed to their culture, because they bring in their food, their habits, their toys, the things that they do with kids. And it was actually really beautiful to see and learn from them as well. And sure, it wasn't always easy. There were misunderstandings, language barriers, miscommunication from time to time, sure. But everything is figure-outable. Everything will work out in the end, and everyone has good intentions. So that's just part of the process. And I think because of the decision of having a nanny at every destination, we learned a lot more about ourselves as well, our own stress levels, how uncomfortable do I want to be. And do not forget, we're still in touch with these girls. Like, they follow us on Instagram, they respond to our posts, and like we know a little bit about them. These are still people that we think about today. So we had a beautiful experience with these ladies, and if we ever go back, for sure I'm gonna hit them up. So if you are a traveling parent or dreaming about taking your family on the road, please know it is possible. With some creativity, with some determination and some research, you can totally do this. It's not that hard. And if this video helped you or gave you some inspiration for your next travel, please let us know in the comments, because we love to connect with other traveling families. Share your stories, your experience, or your questions in the comments, and we'll happy to connect there. Also, next week's video is about finding childcare and nannies here in Portugal. So if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe to our channel, because then that video next week will show up in your feed automatically. You'll be the first to know when that one launched. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, explore life beyond borders. Bye bye.